Good evening, Andres and Gerson.
Hello, hello.
Hi, Andres. Okay, let's wait for your classmates.
Hello, teacher. How are you?
Hello, Freddy. Hello, Christian. So, Andres and Christian, you are going to you work with Fernanda and
Nico.
Nicolas, right?
Yes, they must be about. Maria Fernanda just wrote me that she's trying to enter through her cell phone because usually her computer has sound issues. I don't know, Nico. I haven't spoken to him.
Good evening, everybody.
Hello, Christian. Do you know anything about Nicolas?
No, ma'am, but let me check. Let me write if he's there, okay?
Thank you. I think you will be the first group because students that shows action research have not joined Encounter yet, so you could probably start.
Good evening, everyone.
There's Nico.
Okay. There is Nicolas.
And Mafe.
Good. So, who would like to be the host?
I will be the one who shares.
All right, Andre. So I'm going to give you the permission so you can share your screen.
Yeah, now I am. Okay. Should we start right now?
Well, yes. Good evening, Karen and Freddie and Gerson.
Okay, let's wait. Let's get ready. 1, 2, 3. Okay.
Okay, so may we start? Yes.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, Maria, we can hear you.
Okay.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Nicolas, are you there?
Perfect.
Nicolas.
I'm ready.
Oh, okay, all right. May the force be with you. Let's begin.
Okay, are you seeing my screen? Yes.
Yes,
Yes, sir.
we see your screen.
Okay, so we are going to talk about case study. The group we're working with is me, Andres Felipe Bernal, Maria Fernanda Gutierrez, Cristian Muñoz, and Nicolas Rodriguez. So the first part of our presentation, we would like to start with a little game. So if maybe everybody can help us. It's called, here it is. I think you're seeing it, yes? Cash Cap.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're going to be asking some questions. So we're going to need our dear classmates to help us answer them. So the first question would be, could you please state the main difference between intrinsic? We know, before we do the continue with the questions, we know that maybe most of you haven't read. We just want to know how much do you know about what we're going to talk about. And at the end, we're going to repeat the game to see if maybe the answers were given. So the first question we have is, state the main difference between intrinsic and instrumental case study. Does anybody know an answer?
But Andres, let's give whoever answers correctly, we'll give them 10 points.
Okay, 10 points. So,
all right.
Anyone can help us? Hello? Christian, you're going to have to choose somebody.
Okay, let me see. Eeny, meeny, miny, moe, catch a tiger by the toe. Teacher Diana.
No.
Okay, wait. Let me check again. Let's go for. Okay, I'm sorry, Karen.
Okay, Karen, please answer. Which is the main difference between intrinsic and instrumental case study? What do you think?
No, I don't know. Why me?
But think, give us an idea.
Because you're the youngest.
Well.
Anything that you want.
Andres, let's do something. Let's give him the first answer. Can you give him the first answer, Andres, so we can warm up the game?
Okay, but I'm not going to give the answer because I'll give it in the presentation. I'm just going to give you the correct.
Okay.
They won the points. Okay. So, okay. Now, second question, Karen. This one you have to answer. The appearance of case study in education research was a reaction to. What do you think it was a reaction to?
Okay, let me select somebody else. You chose Clara?
No, Karen. I'm going to give her the opportunity.
Okay, sir.
She
But
wants to
again.
answer. But she wants to answer. She wants to participate with us.
Mm,
You can say whatever you want. It doesn't matter.
mm, to students? I don't know. I'm
To
sorry.
students. Is that a correct answer? No. You have one strike. Okay. Now, next question. Name at least 2 of the forms of case study proposed by Robert K. Jin. Who's going to answer? Nico, choose somebody.
All right. Let's go with Fred Cadena.
Freddy, are you here? I don't see him. I
He's-
think he's
he's
not
online.
here.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Bien, mamita.
Yes, he's here.
I need one moment, please, because I am getting to my home. I'm getting right now to my house. Please let me 5 minutes, and I will answer your question, please.
Okay, so let's go with Gerson. Gerson, could you answer the question, please?
Oh my God, I don't have any idea.
But
No,
yes.
but I can't just say something like,
Yeah, say whatever. I don't care.
names at least 2 the forms of case study proposed by Robert G.
Is that Andres? Can I give like a little tip? Is that the one that talks about exploratory, descriptive? No,
Maybe.
I don't know. You
It
got
could be, yes. Okay, so we're going to do something. As we can see that most of us don't know a lot about case study, we're going to do our presentation, but we want you to know that we have 8 questions. All the answers for the questions are going to be given during the presentation. So we need everybody to please be paying a lot of attention. So
Right.
you're going to be able to know the answers when we play again at the end, okay?
this.
Good.
So, okay. So let me here. There you go. So origin.
But you
Okay,
know
let
what,
me
Andres?
introduce you to case study.
Okay.
Pay close attention then. By the 1970s, the predominant research method in education was the scientific quantitative method, or the one known as positivist model. A group of educators, mainly in the States and in the UK, began to look for another way to explain particular phenomena that was not possible to explain through their normal research models, meaning the one that they used to use, which was the quantitative one. And they began to wonder what was causing that particular phenomena and the reasons for what was going on. So in order to enhance their understanding of those specific contexts or individuals or communities, and as a reaction against the quantitative tendency of the moment, the case study approach was born, and it continues to be an important approach in education research today.
All right, so now we're going to talk about some authors that made some contributions to case study until now. So we're going to start with the first one, is Lawrence Stenhouse. He was a strong supporter of using this approach in education. He believed that case study could enhance decision-making and generating confidence in what might be discovered. He also thought that it was necessary for researchers to be familiar with the setting, that the theory specific to other disciplines shouldn't be imposed in education. Another valuable person in case study is the social scientist Robert K. Ginn. He made some efforts to use the quantitative concepts in case study research. He characterized case study as a method, and he identified three forms of case study. The first one being exploratory, second one descriptive, and the third one explanatory. In the exploratory, it is characterized as a collection of data by which patterns are to be identified within the range of data collected. In this form, the researcher should be familiar with the basic facts, the settings, and the concerns of the case, and should generate ideas, conjectures, or hypotheses. The next one is the descriptive. In this one, it makes use of a set of theories to outline the study in order to provide an accurate idea of the situation of the problem being studied. And the last one is the explanatory. So this one takes the two previous steps and just to propose explanations on the how and why of a given situation, issue, or person is being studied.
Mafe. Mafe.
I am sorry, I was talking and I didn't notice that my mic was muted.
Okay.
Sorry. Let's continue with Sharon Merriam. She's a current professor of adult education and qualitative research at the University of Georgia. She has modified her own definition of case study due to all the progress and evolution of her own research and from other people. In 1988, she defined case study as an intensive, holistic description and analysis of a single instance or phenomenon or social unit. But due to the evolution of her research, 10 years later, she focused on the case as the most important aspect of case study. And this was something that matched Smith and Stake definitions. Moreover, within her definition, she describes three types of case study: particularistic, descriptive, and heuristic. In the particularistic type, as the name clearly says it comes from particular, meaning a single or a specific thing or group. It's not general. It focuses on a specific event or phenomenon. Merriam proposed this type of study as being appropriate to research practical problems, meaning situations or questions that may arise from everyday practice. And next, there's the descriptive type, which focuses on giving detailed or in-depth descriptions, or thick descriptions, as she calls it, of what is being studied. And next, we have a third type, which is the heuristic one. It means that the case studies illuminate or clarify the reader's understanding of the phenomenon that is under study. They can give rise to the discovery of new meaning, extend the reader's experience, or confirm what is known. In addition, within these three types of case study, Merriam describes 4 designs that are used in education research and that they are borrowed from other disciplines, meaning that researchers in education, they often turn to other disciplines for theoretical orientation or for techniques on data collection and analysis. So some of these other disciplines mainly are anthropology, history, psychology, and sociology. And that's why their names of these designs will come from those other disciplines. First, we're going to describe the ethnographic design, which focuses on culture of a school or an institution or a group of students or other particular groups, teaching practice methods or classroom behavior mainly. Then we have the historical design. It employs the use of primary source material. That means any material that provides first-hand information about a person or event. This design tends to be descriptive by describing institutions or programs or practices depending on what is being investigated and the evolution of the phenomena over time and how it has evolved in time mainly. Next, third, we have the psychological one. It uses concepts, theories, and measurement techniques from psychology in investigating educational problems. But the only focus of this type of case, it's the individual. And lastly, there's the sociological one that, in contrast with the psychological, focuses on larger social structures, on the socialization in studying educational phenomena. And these, for example, this includes student interactions or student-teacher interactions and its effects on individuals. And finally, it's important to mention that Merriam also describes case studies based on the intent or purpose of your research. Three main purposes: descriptive, interpretive, and evaluative. In the descriptive type, it presents detailed documentation of the phenomenon under study. In the interpretive, it also contains rich description, but it's used to illustrate or support or even challenge theoretical assumptions prior to collecting the data. And lastly, the evaluative, it involves description as well, but also explanation and judgment, and it mainly weighs information to produce judgment.
Okay, the next author we're going to talk about, or that is mentioned in the article, is Robert E. Stake. Robert Stake characterizes a case study not as a method, but as an object of choice with regards to the particularity that you want to study. He sets this as, he sets out to shape the case as a portrayal, and he highlights that each portrayal or each case is unique and helps us reflect on our own context or our own processes. So unlike Robert Dean, he bases his approach on a qualitative approach based on social sciences, specifically ethnography and biography. He defines, and I'm going to quote him, he defines the case or likens the case study as a work of art. And I'm going to read a quote. He says, "Finishing a case study is the consummation of a work of art. It is an exercise in such depth. The study is an opportunity to see what others have not yet seen, to reflect the uniqueness of our own lives, to engage the best of our interpretive powers." So he basically says that a case study is going to help us understand our own context. He also says that there are very different definitions and approaches about case study, and that each researcher should reflect on what does case study mean for them before starting a case study, and that each time that you're going to do a case study, you're going to probably come up with a new meaning for case study. So in the beginning, his proposals were frowned upon a little bit because it doesn't give a specific meaning, but he's the basis on which many of what today's definitions of case study we have are based on him.
Okay. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Here we have another notable author. His name is Andrew Pollard. His focus during the 1980s and the 1990s was on using case study as a longitudinal strategy. The idea was to capture the nature of learning. He also contributed to the modern case study in educational settings. He liked to work with parents, students, teachers, mainly in schools and at home. He also used multiple ways to collect data and information. And he proposes that in order to have a good result, let's say he mentions that everybody must have like reciprocity, respect, and trust. That's like the main ideas of Andrew Pollard.
All right, so now let's talk about the key elements. Now, there are many elements that are worth mentioning, but we decided to compile that information into this chart that includes 5 general categories. The first one being the subject of analysis. This one could be an event, a person, or the researcher using this approach should be very familiar about the how and why they chose the subject of analysis. So, for instance, if you choose a person, it is important to describe its experiences, just to provide an opportunity to advance understanding about the research problem. Now, you need to be able to explain how is that person is going to add value to the study. The next one is the context. So this one could be located within personal, professional, national, or international context. A case study is done in real life settings, so it is crucial for the understanding of the case in the study. And it's also very important to spend some time within the world of this being researched. The next important element that is worth mentioning is the system relationship, and this one has to do with the interactions of the case with the context. So it is worth mentioning that these relationships involve interactions, communications, and practices between the case and the wider world and the other way around. This one is followed by the sources of evidence. This one focuses on collecting data in order to capture the complexity of the case. So as you know now, case study uses a different type of tools to collect data, such as interviews, observations, reflective journals, and there are more. So in fact, you can use 2 or more of these tools in order to triangulate information to give legitimacy to the conclusion being drawn. And lastly is the design of the case study. There is no specific method or way to conduct a case study, but this is like a close attempt to do so, including all the steps mentioned before. So the first stage, if you will, on how to conduct a case study is the identification of the research as an issue, a problem, or a hypothesis. This will give you the outline of your study. The next one is asking the research question. So we've been learning that asking the research question is very important for any research study. So this one, it basically sets the agenda of the map, basically, on what to do next. This will enable you to know the data that you're going to be collecting, and also permits analysis. The analysis to get started. The next one is the data collection. Now, as you know, in case study, you can use different types of gathering, like different ways of gathering information. So it is very important to be systematic when you're recording data. So this means like taking notes of the day, the time, the place, and keeping backup files. It's also important to not to collect more data that you have time and energy to analyze. The next stage is generating analytical statements, and these statements are related to the data you collected in the previous stage, and they need to give concise answers to the research question. The next one is interpreting these statements. This is where the how and why questions are brought in, just to provide understanding on and the way things are. So normally interpretations are associated with people, individuals, or a group of people, while explanations tend to be an attempt of expressing cause and effect relationships. And lastly, once this explanation is done, it is time to decide the outcome and start writing the case report. Now, it is important to mention that the outcome depends upon the study prepared.
Okay. Now we're going to talk a little bit about case study models. So the first thing that we're going to focus on are intrinsic and instrumental forms. As you have seen throughout the presentation, there are different definitions of case study, and basically based on the author you read or the focus of such author, you'll find different types of definitions. But you can identify sometimes of some sorts of forms or characteristics that may be defined in different ways. And the first ones are based on the work of Robert Steck, which is intrinsic and instrumental case studies. An intrinsic case study is a case study that seeks to understand a particular case better. And it's always going to be focused on a single case. And when I say that, a case, you have to understand it as the object that you are going to study. So in the reading, for example, they give us the example of a school. So when you're going to do an intrinsic research or an intrinsic case study about a school, you are going to analyze and study everything that has to go about the school, including their foundational papers. You can talk about their educational model, how are they organized, how do they teach classes, which are their priorities, etc. So you're going to try to get a whole idea of the school. The instrumental case study, in the other hand, is going to try to understand a specific issue within that case, meaning that now you're not going to be analyzing all the school, but how a specific thing may affect the school. So for example, if taking the example of the school, if you're going to see, for example, how does a methodology may affect the teaching of a specific class in the school, that would be an instrumental case study, in which you are only analyzing that methodology within that particular class. And it's important to note that an instrumental case study can be done on a single case, meaning on a specific place or community, or can also be done in multiple or collective type of on a multiple or collective type of study, which means that you can do the same study in several places at the same time, analyze the same issue in several different cases. So for example, as I was saying, if we're going to analyze a specific methodology, you can do it in a single school to see how a subject is affected in that school, or you could also do it in several schools at a time to see how that effect may change from one school to the other. So that would be the difference between intrinsic and instrumental case study.
Okay, for the reflective, we can define it as a method where the researcher emphasizes on personal evaluative component, of course using reflective reflection as its main core. Here, this is key. They had to have time for reflection and drawing reflective commentaries, since it's the opportunity to have deep reflection. I do repeat that keyword of what is being observed. It's important to record everything or register everything. So they use generally they use expanded field notes or journals to do this. And they also have to include here the researchers' feelings or issues, reflections on experiences and interactions. And it's key to understand that this goes beyond just a simple reflection. The heart of reflective case study is precisely deep observation, deep reflection, and peer discussions to increase experiences and obtain greater details or information so that the research can have like deeper effect. There are two things here in reflective. We have, can you go to the next slide, please?
Sorry.
It's okay. We have key aspects or challenges in this case study, in this reflective method. Key aspects of it is that the researcher is the central point of the method, since he is the one doing all this reflection. It also uses different kinds of evidence, as I mentioned, using journals, commentaries from peers, from students, from the own student. For example, it's a case is studying a particular individual, or other form of data collection using also video or tape recordings, and also the commentaries or feedback from other colleagues or teachers. Now, it's important to know also that it can be conducted over a concise or precise time frame, or it can be extended to a greater period of time with the main purpose of gathering a deeper understanding of the developmental nature of those reflections. Now, some challenges that arise here in this reflective method is that it's depending on the personal biases, or meaning the tendency or the preference of the researcher. It needs additional perspectives to balance the research focus. One perspective or one point of view. That's why it enhances the research to have other perspective or opinions from others. And challenges having opportunities to collect data from different forms, and also ethical issues in relation to colleagues or students. Meaning, since we're going to be probably studying a particular individual or a particular case, there may be some situations in which the ethical part can interfere in that.
Right, so the next one is a longitudinal case study. In this type of study, the researcher observes a process over a long period of time and looks into the changes this process undergoes. This one gives you like an advantage to the researcher, as you can follow the development of the case. And this provides the researcher with more evidence to understand the subject of the study more in depth. Some of the advantages of this type of case study are that you can use a blend or mixed methods for data collection. You can use a quantitative or qualitative, although in this type of studies you tend to use more the qualitative approach. And it also another thing worth mentioning is that you can investigate the process and changes through time. It also links the past, the present, and the future, and the data is dynamic rather than static. Now, there are also some challenges or disadvantages of using this type of study. The first one is that you need to be like persistent, and you need a lot of continued effort to make it work, because this study goes for a long time. So this is one of the disadvantages. Another one could be the loss of interest from those involved. Now, not just you as a researcher, but the people in this case, if you decide to go for a person, the person may probably died or move places, and that's probably going to affect the outcome of your research. The next one is the recognition of changes, because again, it is done in a long period of time, so it's probably sometimes hard to recognize when these changes occur. And the last one is bringing the research to a conclusion, so not knowing when to finish it.
Okay, we'll talk about 3 models. The first one is the collaborative case study, second collective case study, and the other one is the cumulative case study. I will talk about the main key aspects of each model. Cumulative case study, well, the idea is to add information from several sites collected at different times. The other one is pre-collecting of past studies will allow for greater generalization. And the other one is without additional cost. The collective case study, the idea is for different people to work separately with a similar purpose. The other key aspect is that data and evidence come from different sources and may have different perspectives. And the last one is a collaborative case study, which is joint efforts to analyze a shared subject of study and a shared purpose. It brings different data together, creates a solid and a broad body of evidence, and relevant to different contexts. Those are like the main aspects of each model. And now we'll see a video. I don't know, Andres, if we have time to watch it.
Yeah,
but it
yes,
will be interesting to show them. Yeah.
Yes? Okay. I'm going to play it. Give me 1 minute, please. Sorry.
It's like 4 minutes. How long is it?
Yeah,
it's short.
like 4 minutes.
We have time.
Oh, okay, perfect.
Please let me know if you are hearing it, okay?
In this video,
Yes,
Yes, Andres.
case study. We are going to use the Handbook of Practical Program Evaluation written by Joseph S. Holley, Harry P. Hartree, and Catherine E. Newcomer. First, what are case studies? In a general sense, a case study is like an in-depth and extended example that is used to illustrate a particular argument. However, in a more academic sense, we can define a case study as a method for developing a complete understanding of a process, program, event, or activity. So in these terms, a case study can be thought about as a way of approaching a research topic. Case studies can integrate both quantitative and qualitative information, and they can do this from a variety of sources, but they will tend to focus on qualitative information to give an in-depth picture of the issue being studied and the broader environment. As Holly et al. Explained, case studies can be used for several purposes, including defining the questions and hypothesis of a subsequent study, presenting a description of an event within its context, or establishing a cause and effect relationship. There are a variety of academic fields, from medicine to law to media and communications, that use case studies. Case studies are generally categorized in three ways: exploratory, descriptive, or explanatory. An exploratory case study is aimed at defining the questions and hypotheses of a subsequent study. For example, an exploratory case study might involve in-depth research and analysis of the way a welfare program is successfully operated in a particular state. As a result of this case study, and using the results that the researchers put forward, other researchers can then use this to conduct further research on how to implement or drive new or updated welfare programs, perhaps in other states. A descriptive case study presents a complete description of an event within its context. This means that the research report will be highly descriptive, nuanced, detailed, and emphasize the contextual specificities of the particular example being examined. And lastly, an explanatory case study focuses on establishing cause and effect relationships, explaining which causes produced which effects. This means that the study examines the particular outcomes generated from a set of circumstances. For example, perhaps you would like to examine whether eating before swimming has any effect, and what circumstances, the timing after eating or the kind of food eaten, might be adding to those effects. How does one researcher put together a case study? There are four main steps for researchers to put together a case study project. First, they design the study so they know exactly what they are researching and why. This is done by developing research questions, developing a framework based on those questions, and then following through. Second, one will conduct the study using a variety of methods such as research interviews, surveys and questionnaires, document analysis, historical research, and other research methods that they might feel is appropriate to their process. And third, researchers must analyse the data and information they have collected and collated. Perhaps they might build a database or use a specific theoretical research tool to systematically sift through the information. Lastly, the researchers must prepare the case study report, which will include not only the findings, but an outline of the context, data collection, and the limitations of the case study. So there you have it. You're ready to start building your own case study. Good luck.
Okay, so just to finish, go back to our game. So, sorry, I opened the one that is not, sorry. We're going to go back to our game and see if you can answer the 8 questions that we have. You're going to have as a group 3 strikes to see if you're able to answer our questions, okay? So let's go back to the beginning. And there you go. So let's start. Question 1. Somebody, could you state, please, the main difference between intrinsic and instrumental case study? Somebody?
Yeah, Andres?
Yes.
Okay, and on the left hand, with an intrinsic topic, maybe the person needs to understand particular case better. To the okay, instrumental on the right, understand a specific issue in a research case. Both are single case, yeah. we can use multiple or collective, maybe hypotheses or using data to get an answer, yeah, to get the better research in whatever question.
Strikes. Question number 2. The appearance of case study in education research was a reaction to. Who can answer? Hello. If nobody answers, we have to choose somebody, partners. Nobody?
Give the answer, Andres. Or you want me to give it?
No, somebody should, we should give them the opportunity.
I mentioned that actually.
Yeah, you mentioned it. For example, let's see. I don't know. Let's go with the young one. Karen, could you answer, please? No, you can.
Yeah, guys.
Yeah, because you said it.
I really.
I give you a hint. I give you a hint, Carol. It was a reaction to the most predominant type of research that happened at that moment.
Okay, I really took notes, but I don't have it.
It begins with a Q.
Yeah, it begins with a Q. And we've
There
seen
was
it in the
only
class.
one method that was being used. So this was born as a reaction because that was the only research approach that the people was using.
Quanti?
We used it last time. Okay. 5, 4, 3, 2,
Sorry, guys, I don't have it.
1. Okay, it was quantitative. So you have one strike. Okay, name and list 2 of the forms of case study proposed by Robert K. Jin. Who can help us?
I am.
Yes.
Exploratory, descriptive,
Yes.
and explanatory.
Excellent. Very good. Okay, question number 4. Why is the context a key element of case study? Anyone?
Okay, Andres.
Yes.
Okay, there are 5 elements. The first one is subject of analysis. The 2 one is context. The 3rd, system relationship. 4, sources of evidence. 5, design. I consider that design is the best and the most important thing
But why is
we need to
context?
analyze.
And context, why do you think the context is important in a case study? Anyone?
Maybe according with the context, maybe the main mission on data could be the design, maybe before to get an exploratory or a researching case. I mean.
Okay, should we give him the point?
Yeah, maybe, yeah, I got a point.
Okay.
Yes.
We'll give you the point. Okay. Somebody different, please. Question number 5. Stenhouse suggested that the research should be what? With the setting where the research occurred. Let's see, for example, Clara. Stenhouse suggested that the research should be?
That should be with the setting where the research occurred. Let me a sec, please.
I'll give you a hint. Mom, dad, son, daughter.
Fernanda. Relative.
Yes.
Familiar.
Familiar, very good, excellent. Yes, should be familiar.
Relatives.
Okay. Yeah, well, you should be familiar with the case study. Okay, number 6. What did they say regarding the definition of case study? Robert E. Take, what did he say regarding the definition of case study? Hello. Let's see, for example, Gerson. What did he say? Gerson, hello. Nobody?
Me, Andres.
Well, you're answering everything, but yes, Freddy, thanks.
Okay, maybe one, I consider the most important thing that that you mentioned, no, that Jorge mentioned.
No, I
Yeah.
talked about steak.
Okay, one step I consider that different people work separately and asynchronously with a similar purpose. I mean, it doesn't matter that different people are the most important as they have different knowledge, yeah, to share each other.
Okay, is that correct, friends? Do you think it's
maybe
correct?
the data and evidence?
I think it's not so good. I think it's wrong. Remember that. So you have to get out of our cab. Remember that. What?
Oh my God.
But it was a nice try. It was a nice try.
Okay,
It was a good effort.
Yeah.
You give
remember
up,
that.
Fred. You get the point. Fred, you get the point.
Okay, Freddy
Okay,
will
thank
get
you.
a chocolate,
Thank you.
but he
So
has to buy
much.
it for himself. Okay. So, so we want to thank you. That is our whole presentation. Thank you very much for listening to us. And that's that, teacher. I will give you back the host. There you are.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you all for the presentation. It was, the design is very nice. The game was very creative to try to interact with your classmates. The information was complete. And I would like to know if your classmates have questions about the presentation, anything that is not, that needs to be explained again, or any question you might have.
I don't know, Miss, if we can upload the PowerPoint presentation so everybody can like check it out, or I don't know, they can have it. Is it possible? I don't know, Andres.
I don't care.
All right. So
It still it gets recorded. It stays recorded in this video.
It wouldn't. Yeah, we wouldn't have to do that because it's recorded.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Mhm.
perfect. Okay.
Yeah, but we can upload the presentation so they can like read. Everybody can
Yeah,
read.
that too. I don't have a
Because
problem.
I would like to have the other presentations too for my my folder of university and all that.
So does anyone have a question that we can answer?
I think an issue that happened, since of course we started right on time, some people got or joined the class late, so of course they missed big parts of the presentation. So
well, there is also a lot of information that probably your classmates need to check again and read the document so they have a better understanding of what case study is. I would like you guys to give an example. I'm going to ask you some questions so you can give an example that probably can help your classmates to have a better idea. So here in your presentation, you have like the key elements. So let's think about a topic that you are interested in researching, which is teaching for understanding, right? So let's suppose that the subject of analysis is that topic. The context is the school where Andres works. And then I would like you to think about the forms of case study. If you were going to start a descriptive case study, what type of question might be asked regarding that the topic is teaching for understanding?
If it were a descriptive case study, the question could be, well, no, I'm just, well,
So maybe if it's a descriptive case study, what I think the focus of a descriptive case study is going to be like giving a thick explanation of the topic. So
Right.
probably I think that what we probably would do is like go to teachers and go to maybe all the teachers and maybe also students and ask specifically what are the procedures that they do, how do they plan the classes, I don't know which stages do they use, which steps do they use in order for the classes to be done, and how do they try to accomplish the goals that they set at the beginning of the class. So we're going to try to give a very good explanation of what teaching for understanding or how teaching for understanding is being applied in that specific school.
Okay, very good, Andres. So if the topic of the research is teaching for understanding at a school, so the researchers don't want to make any implementation or don't want to solve any problem, that they want to describe what is happening in the school regarding that approach, teaching for understanding. So the question would be to ask, how is that approach being implemented there, by asking the teachers how they teach their lessons, the procedures they carry out, the way they assess students, right? So the way to collect the data will be through surveys, through interviews, by observing the teachers, but there won't be a strategy to implement something and to solve a problem, but just to describe what is the situation in that school. That is why it is called a case, because the unit of research is, in that case, is the school approach to teaching, which is teaching for understanding. And the aim of the research will be to describe what is happening there. If teachers are teaching their lessons, are assessing the students' learning, taking into account that approach, or if it's not happening.
I have a question right there.
Yes, Maria.
Okay, we would be researching into teaching for understanding and how teachers are doing their practice and everything, but shouldn't we also assess or research into the understanding of students and not only focused on how they teach their classes or what procedures they use and everything?
Mm-hmm. You can't have different points of views from the teachers, from the students, from the administrators. That's possible. Okay, what if the type of case study or the form of case study is explanatory? How will be the research design?
Okay, so when it's explanatory, it's kind of a mixture of the first two. So in exploratory research, what you'll do is like gather a lot of information and try to seek for patterns or whatever. And in descriptive, you're going to try to describe, as we just said. But in explanatory, we're going to try to find like causes or answer the question of why something is happening or what is the reason something is happening. So probably in an explanatory, I think, this is just my opinion, I think that in an explanatory, you are going to try to identify some issue, some problem, something that is happening, and then you're going to, through data and through surveys, try to find out why that problem emerged or what is happening. And I don't know if this is a question of mine, I don't know if you could also get up to proposing like solutions based on the information you got. I don't know, but
you mainly explain why that is happening. Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly, because when going through the information that I was researching for the presentation, I found something that was very interesting and applied to this exercise. It said that when you do a case study, in this case, you always have to find an answer for a problem. Sometimes you have to just maybe help people understand the problem so they can find ways to cope with it. You know, so I think that could apply to this in this context.
Right. So what you mentioned is exactly what needs to be done. So identify the problem. Let's suppose that you have evidence to say that teaching for understanding is not being implemented at the school. And now you want to know why. Yes? Why is that happening? Because there is lack of, you might ask teachers, you might ask administrators and find out that probably they didn't have enough training on how to implement that, or there is a mismatch between assessment and the method, the procedures that are used for teaching, etc. So that you identify the problem and now you want to know, and you have the evidence that demonstrates that the problem exists. Now you want to know why is that happening. So you collect the data, then you describe why the problem is what is the cause of the problem.
Okay.
Right? And if it is exploratory, it's because there is no previous information about that context. So let's suppose that there is a very new method for teaching and learning. So it was implemented at a school, and then you go to that school, you observe classes, you interview students and teachers, and you identify why the method is successful in that context, what is happening in that school, so that the new method is being successful there. That's why it's exploratory in that example.
In that case, you could also use quantitative approaches, yes? I mean,
yes.
So you could also look exams and results and see if maybe the results improved or not or whatever.
Exactly. In some cases, you can have a mix, or you can have a qualitative exploratory case study.
Okay.
Good. Well, congratulations. So I will upload this presentation, this encounter, so anybody can check it again. And if you want to understand better, you can read the information that is published in the virtual room regarding case studies. Okay, congratulations again. And
thank you, teacher.
Thank you, teacher.
We have Didier now. And Didier, your classmate is not with us tonight. Didier?
Yes, teacher is absent.
Yes, do you want to present your topic?
Only me.
Well, I don't know. Do you know what happened to him?
I don't know.
Well, would you try to present your information? Or
Waiting.
could you repeat, please?
Can we wait him?
Well, but it's 7:30. So let's do something. Let's try to present the information and I will help you.
Okay.
All right, so I'm going to give you the role of host so you can share your screen and your presentation. Or do you want me to show the presentation, to share my screen? I have your presentation here. Didier? Okay, I have your presentation here, so I will share my screen. Okay. You found it.
This one about action research. It's a process in which participants examine their own educational practice systematically and carefully. Of research is based on the following assumptions. For example, the teachers and principals work best on problems they have identified for themselves. Teachers and principals become more effective when encouraged to examine and assess their own work and then consider ways of working differently. Teachers and principals help each other by working
collaboratively.
Working with college helps teachers and principals in their professional development.
Okay, I'm going to interrupt you just for a second. So in your definition, the definition that you gave, the main idea is that teachers want to do something to improve their teaching. So when we identify a problem in the class, so we can think about doing something to solve the problem, or use a new strategy that we have not used before and see if it works. That is like the main idea of action research. Okay, Didier, please continue.
Okay, we can find types of action research. For example, we can find individual teachers research and collaborative action research, school-wide action research, district-wide action research, focus about individual research. It's a single classroom issue. Possibly possible support needed. Potential impact and side effects about this type of action research.
Okay, well, before you move to the next one, could you go back to the second slide? Third, okay. So the idea in this chart is that we can research on our own in our classroom, or we can identify a problem that is repeated in other classes. So we can have an action research with other teachers who have experienced the same problem in their classes. So that's collaborative action research. A school-wide action research is, for example, what a teacher in a school in Suba carried out, which is that he identified that the main problem in the school was that the girls were getting pregnant when they were adolescents. So that happened in all the school, in all the levels, because it was a high school. So he identified that problem and he carried out a solution for the whole school, which was to implement in the curriculum a class about sexuality and gender. And in that school, he approached the problem. It's action research because he is trying to solve the problem, and it's school-wide because the problem is repeated in all the courses in high school. And the district-wide, the last column that Didier has here in this presentation, is when we address a problem that is happening not only in one school, but in two or more. That's the difference. Okay. All right. Didier, please continue.
Okay, this is a brief story of action research. The idea of using researches in a natural setting to change the way that the researchers interact with that setting can be traced back to Kurt Lewin, I don't know, social psychologist and educator whose work and action research was developed throughout the 1940s. Lewin is credited with coining the term action research to describe work that did not separate in the investigation from the action needed to solve the problem. Topics chosen for his study related directly to the context of the issue. His process was cyclical, involving a non-linear pattern of planning, acting, observing, and reflecting on the changes in the social situations. Okay, about steps in action research. Within all the definitions of action research, there are four basic themes: empowerment of participants, collaboration through participation, acquisition of knowledge, and social change. In conducting action research, we structure routines for continuous confrontation with data on the health of our school community. These routines are loosely guided by movement through 5 phases of inquiry. One, for example, one, identification of problem area. 2, collection and organization of data. 3, interpretation of data. 4, action based on data. And finally, 5, reflection.
Okay, Didier, before you move to the next one, an example. So let's suppose that I identify that my students are not learning with the method that I'm using in my class. So I'm going to try a new method, and I use it and I collect data to find out if that works better. What type of data? I can interview students and find out if their opinions about the new method. I can use tests and see if the results of the tests are better after using the new method. I can write a diary, so I keep track of what is happening in every class after I use a new method. Then I analyze the data, I interpret the data, and then I do something else. So action, stage 4 says action based on data. So what can I do? Either I identify that the new method works or that it didn't work. So I can do something, I do something regarding the data I analyze, and I write the reflections about that. So that is the way it works. It is cyclical. It means that I can, after my reflections and after analyzing the data, I can find out something else that leads me to continue researching or doing something to improve even more. Okay. Didier, please continue.
Okay. Okay. Identify a problem area. Teachers often have a serial questions they wish to investigate. However, it is important to limit the questions to one that is meaningful and double in the confines of their daily work. Careful planning at this first stage with limit faults, starts, and frustrations. There are several criteria to consider before investing the time and effort in researching a problem. Excuse me. An important guideline in choosing a question is to ask if it is something over which the teacher has influence, if it's something of interest and worth the time and effort that will be spent. Sometimes there is a discrete problem that is readily identifiable, or the problem to be studied may come from a feeling of discomfort or tension in the classroom. For example, a teacher may be using the latest fashionable teaching strategy, yet not really knowing or the understanding what or how kids are learning. Interpret data, analyze and identify major themes. Depending upon the question, teachers may wish to use classroom data, individual data, or subgroup data. Some of the data are quantifiable and can be analyzed without the use of statistics or technical assistance. Other data such as opinions, attitudes, or checklists may be summarized in table form. Data that are not quantifiable that can be reviewed holistically, and important elements or themes can be noted. Yes. Let's say, benefits, finally, benefits of action research. Benefits of action research can be a worthwhile pursuit for educators for a number of reasons. For most among these is a simply the desire to know more. Good teachers are, after all, the same. Students often look for ways to expand upon their existing knowledge. Well, action research, benefits of action research.
Okay. Any question for Didier?
Actually.
I can have one for him.
Okay.
Just not directly related to the topic itself, but to him. Didier, did you find anything that called your attention, that was new for you and like interested you in learning maybe more about it?
Hello? Hello?
Didier?
Sorry?
Okay. Maria, could you please repeat the question?
Sure. Didier, can you hear me?
More or less. I don't know what happened with the audio.
Just to know if there was something that you learned that interested you, that called your attention and it was new for you and maybe you want to learn more about it?
The ways about learning, I don't know, I'm not the questions. My God, the audio is so terrible.
Okay, don't worry.
Excuse me.
Okay, I have a question for all of you, and I would like to know if you can tell the aim of action research and the aim of case study. So if I want to carry out a case study research, what do I want? And the same with action research.
I think for what I understood of action research, I think that the purpose of action research, action research, oh my God, is like to focus on improving practices and improving either our own practices or practices in general in the school or even in the city, as you wrote there. So what I understand is that you're going to try to identify a problem and take action over that problem, like solve the problem and have and improve the well, not solve the problem, but improve practices.
Very good. So in that case, the researcher will be teacher and researcher at the same time.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Good. What about the aim of case study research?
I would say something. Oh, okay. I'll try just a short idea.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Something like developing or obtaining a complete understanding of either a process or an individual, an event, an activity, a program, whatever the focus of the study is.
So we will be trying to understand.
Or gain complete understanding, yes.
A complete understanding or comprehension, very good. Of what is happening in a context. Very good.
And in that case, the researcher could be a teacher, but not necessarily.
No, it will be only, it will be, well, that it won't, the person, it will be biased. So if I am the person who is role of the researcher, if I am analyzing my own the problem. Let's say the problem is in one class, and let's say that is what is happening with one student who needs special education, that he is in the same class with the other students. So I want to know, I want to describe the way he learns. I will be the teacher there, but it will be kind of biased. It means that probably I'm not very objective on my descriptions. It can happen, but I need to do something to avoid that bias. If it is better if I describe other teachers' class or other class in which I am not the teacher.
Okay.
So, for example, Maria collects the data. It's an example. Collects the data in Andres' school about teachers' processes when in their English classes, and in order to try to find out if those processes match the teaching for understanding approach, right? So the role of the teacher could be observer. The role of the researcher could be observer, and the person who would interpret the information. Yes. Again, I could describe my own course in the example that I gave you to find out how the person who needs special education is doing in my class, in my English class, how that person is learning. But it might happen that I'm not very objective, so I would need to do something like design a good instrument so I can avoid that bias. Good.
But I was meaning, and I agree with you. I was meaning, for example, in the example you gave when in our presentation, if I'm going to try to understand how teaching for understanding is in my school, well, maybe I'm a teacher in the school, but I can maybe carry out the investigation. Probably not talking about my specific class, but of classes of some of my colleagues. So that was what I was meaning.
Yeah, so not your class, but your colleague's class, for example.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, so that the main idea is that in a case study, we try to understand what is going on in the class or in the school or with one specific student. We are going to try to understand what is happening. While in action research, the aim is to improve what we are doing in the class with students teaching or learning. That's the difference. Do you guys have questions, comments before we finish?
No, teacher, everything is gonna be well.
Yeah, everything for me, everything is clear.
Okay, so next week, well, if it is possible, 3 groups will present their topics. If it's not possible because they have a lot of information to explain, so only 2 presentations will be carried out, and 1 more will be presented in 15 days. So we will see. We will see how long their presentations are.
Okay.
Okay, teacher.
Okay, teacher.
I have a question, Diana, I'm sorry.
Yes, Maria.
So is there any extra task for the following week, or we just wait until we all cover the presentations and then we continue with our activities? Or
I mean, for this week, there is no extra task because you have the readings there. The idea is that you should get prepared for the encounter. So you might, for example, let's say, explore the reading, probably not in depth because you are not going to explain the topic, but just to read and try to get like the main idea. So you get prepared for the presentation, and you might ask questions in the next encounter.
Okay.
Not this week. Next week you will have a new task. Either if we finish or not the presentations, you will have a new task.
And I have another question. The following tasks are all going to be group work, or are they going to be some individual and some group work?
Yeah, right now I don't remember. I need to check the timetable. Because right now I don't remember.
Okay, no worries.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for joining the encounter.
All right, thank you, Professor.
Thank you.
Okay, teacher. Thank you.
Okay,
Good evening.
Goodbye.
Thank you, Didier, for your presentation.
Okay. Bye, guys.
Have a good night.
Bye. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.